Shocking new text messages unveiled in the case of the high schooler allegedly strangled to death aboard a Carnival cruise ship. Dozens of pages of text messages have been released that show what Anna Kepner's stepmom told her ex-husband about what happened aboard the ship and what the alleged suspect said about it. What these new messages show, the couple said about things needing to be, quote, hush hush, as the investigation was just beginning. Also, we are reportedly learning more about where that suspect is right now as the FBI continues to investigate a potential murder on the high seas. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. It has been nearly 2 months since Anna Kepner was found dead, reportedly in her stateroom aboard a cruise ship that she boarded less than a week earlier with her family. The FBI hasn't said much about Anna Kepner's body being taken off of the ship on November 8th in the investigation into what happened. At the time of this recording, there have not been any arrests in this case. Now, a lot of the information that we do have in this case, it's come from a separate custody case that involves Anna Kepner's stepmom and her ex-husband. And we now just got perhaps our largest drop of information yet about what happened aboard the ship, and more specifically, what happened right after the 18-year-old cheerleader was found dead in her stateroom in early November aboard the Carnival cruise ship, the Horizon, because dozens of pages of text messages were just reportedly made public. And these are text messages that Anna Kepner's stepmom, who's named Chantel, and her ex-husband sent back and forth after Anna Kepner was found dead. Now, Chantel Kepner previously was known as Chantel Hudson. She used to be married to a man named Thomas Hudson, and they have been in a custody case for more than a year. And there's a lot of messages that were sent that are unrelated to Anna, unrelated to the cruise, but there are some that were sent in the days after Anna's body was found aboard the ship and the FBI started to investigate. We do want to note, because her death happened on board a cruise ship, it's federal jurisdiction, which is why the FBI is involved. Now, let me show you how these text messages factor into this case, because if you've been following this story with us, you know this has been going on for almost 2 months at this point. We know that the final days of Anna Kepner's life are believed, according to family members, to have played out something like this. You have Kepner, her biological dad, who's named Chris, then her stepmom, Chantel, Anna Kepner's biological grandparents and her siblings, as well as her step-siblings, this blended family. They all took a cruise together that launched out of Miami. It was called the Carnival Horizon. We're talking about one of these massive floating cities, nearly 4,000 passengers, 15 decks, and it was a 6-day cruise. They made multiple stops in the Caribbean before the ship returned to South Florida. Now, Kepner was a varsity cheerleader from Titusville, Florida, which is about 3 hours north of Miami. She was planning to graduate in the spring. Her family said that she actually planned to join the military, the Navy, after graduation. Now, on November 6th, which is one of the last days on the cruise and the last day that Kepner was seen alive, she reportedly was not feeling well. And her grandparents told ABC News that it was because her braces were bothering her. So she called it an early night, went back to her stateroom. November 7th, the next day, the Kepners, the entire family, they get up, they go get breakfast, but Anna did not show up. Her grandfather told ABC that he was getting bingo cards when he hears this medical emergency announcement over the intercom, and he realized the room number that medical staff were going to. It was around 11 o'clock that morning that the Daily Mail says that a maid entered Anna's stateroom, and that maid made a horrifying discovery on November 7th. Kepner's body allegedly was found wrapped in a blanket, covered over with life jackets, and stuffed under a bed. ABC News says that she had been strangled. An arm, allegedly across her neck, had killed her. There's reportedly no evidence of sexual assault or drugs or alcohol being in her system. Now, the ship returned to port on November 8th, and that is when Kepner's body was taken off of the Horizon and transported to the medical examiner's office in Miami-Dade County. This video here is of her body being taken off of the ship. It was taken by WSVN TV reporter Sheldon Fox. Now, according to the death certificate that Fox News first obtained, Kepner's date of death is listed as November 7th. Per a separate death certificate that ABC News has, they say they obtained one from a family member that lists the date of injury as November 6th. Now again, investigators have not provided the public with a timeline of Anna Kepner's death, but a lot of information has come from the family through media interviews and as well as through this custody situation involving her stepmom that we'll talk about here in just a moment. Now, one of the people aboard that cruise ship with Anna Kepner and the rest of the family was her stepbrother. He's 16 years old. He is the son of her stepmom, Chantel. Now, it was said in Chantel's custody case that the 16-year-old is a suspect in Anna's death, and beyond that, Anna's grandparents told ABC News that he was the only other person seen going into the stateroom with Anna the night that she died. Now, what Anna's relationship was really like with her stepbrother, that does seem to be up for debate, because you have friends, in fact, you actually have a boyfriend, his family, ex-boyfriend, who have said that Anna did not have a good relationship with her stepbrother. They went on Inside Edition, and they said that the stepbrother was obsessed with Anna and not in a good way, and she was not a fan of it. Quote, she was scared of him because he always carried around a big knife. This is according to the ex-boyfriend's dad, who also said that his son once witnessed the stepbrother go into Kepner's room during a FaceTime call, quote, when she was sleeping and get on top of her. He's like infatuated, attracted to her like crazy. He always wanted to date her, that dad said to Inside Edition. The ex-boyfriend also told Inside Edition that Anna was so afraid of her stepbrother that she actually slept over at friends' houses just to get away from him. You have that narrative. It paints a very complicated, concerning picture of a stepbrother-stepsister relationship, but that narrative, it's very different from how her grandparents are characterizing her relationship with her stepbrother, because they told ABC News that Anna and her stepbrother had a real brother-sister type relationship, and they were actually like, quote, two peas in a pod. On this cruise, Anna was reportedly sharing a room with that stepbrother. According to what Anna's ex-boyfriend told Inside Edition, Anna's biological brother, who was also on the cruise, he actually tried to get into the stateroom, but he was locked out, and Anna and the stepbrother were inside the stateroom. This is, again, all Inside Edition, saying that the biological brother said he heard yelling in the stateroom and the stepbrother saying something along the lines of, quote, shut the hell up, and he could hear some banging around in the stateroom the night that Anna died. Now, the grandparents told ABC News that investigators say the only person who was seen going into that stateroom with Anna before she was found dead was her 16-year-old stepbrother. Anna's grandparents say that everyone was questioned about Anna after her body was found. The stepson reportedly says he does not remember details about the alleged incident. And I'll have much more on that in a moment when we talk about these text messages. According to ABC, the 16-year-old said, quote, in his own words, says he does not remember what happened. That is according to the grandparents. On top of that, Anna's grandma says in her interview with ABC News that she believes the boy, that he doesn't remember what happened. She also says the boy was hospitalized for a psychiatric evaluation once the ship returned to port. Now, let's talk about this custody hearing, this custody case that has been playing out in the public eye after the death of Anna Kepner, because that's where we are getting a lot of our information through official channels. And again, it involves Anna Kepner's stepmom, Chantel, formerly Chantel Hudson, and Thomas Hudson, who is her ex-husband. And not only are we learning about the stepson, the stepbrother, the potential suspect in this case, we are now learning a little bit more about what charges could look like. After court filings surfaced indicating that Anna's 16-year-old stepbrother was a suspect in her death, her stepmom's ex-husband, Thomas, took emergency action. He filed a motion claiming that with a homicide suspect recently living in the home, that their daughter, the one that he shares with Chantel, was now in immediate danger. And he asked a judge to remove his daughter immediately. Now, in their most recent hearing, which happened on December 17th, the two sides broke down decisions that were made on the cruise. Here's Thomas Hudson's attorney, who laid out his core concerns about the cruise right in his opening statement. Listen to how he framed it for the judge.
Your Honor, in this case, obviously, it's our position that the youngest child is at risk for a number of reasons. As the court is aware through the pleadings, there's a young lady who's passed away. That matter is still under investigation. That was not my client's child, but the stepchild of the mother in this case, and the remaining 16-year-old is now a suspect in that case. In this case, the mother took the children, both on a cruise against my client's wishes, while preventing him from having regular contact with those children. We believe that the arrangements that were made by the mother as far as the sleeping arrangements were insufficient, that the 18-year-old, the 16-year-old, and another 14-year-old were all placed in the same stateroom. There's indications that they may have, because they were in international waters, may have been engaging in activities that they normally couldn't engage in while they were in the United States properly being supervised.
Now, the attorney for Anna's stepmom, Chantel, had a very different view of the situation in that home after Anna's death. Her core argument was simple, that the person at the center of the FBI's investigation, her own 16-year-old son, Anna's stepbrother, the suspect in Anna's case, was living elsewhere.
We believe, and I think we filed that in our response, that there's no emergency that exists. There was an incident on the cruise ship. The Federal Bureau of Investigations is investigating that. There have been no arrests made yet, but since my clients were advised that the was a suspect in that, after he was released from the hospital upon the return to the United States, he was placed with a relative of the mother's. And not only did that happen, but Mom contacted Dad, and Dad signed an agreement to say that this child would be placed with a third party, thereby removing any risk of any danger to any of the other children in the home. So that has been resolved.
And in a later statement, her attorney revealed something pretty significant. Anna Kepner's stepbrother could potentially face charges. Now, this was the first time that we heard in court that criminal charges for Anna's death are being actively considered, because the FBI really hasn't said anything publicly.
How long is Timothy expected to remain with the relative?
At this point, we're not sure. We're not sure what the FBI is going to do, whether he's going to be charged federally or whether they're going to turn it over to the state.
Now, with that potential prosecution hanging in the air, the stepmom was called to the stand and forced to answer for the exact environment and decisions that the FBI is now investigating. The questioning went straight to the cruise and the choices made there.
Did you recently go on a cruise?
Yes.
Okay. And did any of the children go with you on the cruise? Did you reach out to Mr. Hudson to request that he agree to passports for the children?
I reached out to him to inform him of my itinerary to take the children on a cruise, and did ask for the passports, but they weren't needed in this cruise.
And Mr. Hudson actually refused to cooperate with obtaining passports, correct?
To sign for the passports, yes.
You said passports weren't necessary, so they weren't obtained?
Correct.
As far as the minor children, what were the sleeping arrangements on this cruise?
Was in my room with my husband and his 9-year-old daughter, and then shared a room with his stepsister and stepbrother. The room was directly across from ours.
What was the stepsister's name?
Anna Kepner.
And what was the stepbrother's name? And how old is
14.
And how old was Anna?
18.
Now, who made the decision to have these 3 teenagers in one room in the cruise?
We had talked it over with our travel agent, and that was what was suggested.
Did you have to sign any special permission for
No,
the children to reside together? So was it a mutual decision between yourself and your husband?
correct.
And at some point, did you discover that one of the children had passed away?
Yes,
And when was that you discovered that?
Friday morning.
When was the last time that you'd seen the child before that Friday morning?
Thursday night.
You know approximately what time?
Right around 6:30.
And your child, did you see him that Thursday night as well?
Yes,
What time did you see him at?
closer to 7, just a little bit before 7.
What was he doing at that time?
He was headed back to his room.
Do you know whether or not was present in the room as well?
They all were headed back to their room, as far as I know.
So where was their room in relation to your room?
Right across the hall. You walked out my door, their door was right in front of it.
Did you return to your room that evening?
Yes,
What time did you return to your room?
7 o'clock.
7 p.m.?
Yeah, right, it was actually closer to 7:30.
Did you stay in the room for the rest of the night?
Yes,
With the teenagers across the hall, did you ever go in and check on them?
no, I had went to sleep.
Do you know if Christopher went across the hall to check on them?
Not that I know of.
Do you know if Christopher left the room that night on that Thursday night?
I never seen him leave the room.
The attorney then pivoted to questions about the environment on the ship, probing what activities the teenagers might have had access to, specifically alcohol and gambling. She says the underage children didn't drink because they're not old enough, but when pressed specifically about the 18-year-old, Anna Kepner, her answer was a firm, "I don't know," which leaves a question about what supervision or awareness there was of Anna on this cruise, an adult who was sharing a room with 2 minors, including the reported suspect in her death. Listen to this.
Had you drank it all during the cruise?
I had 2 pina coladas and a blue Hawaiian earlier in the week, but it wasn't on the same day, it was like one a day.
Do you know if the children, based on being in international waters, could I drink alcohol?
No,
You don't know?
no, they didn't. They're not old enough.
What about Anna?
I don't know.
Weren't you aware that the children were gambling at some point?
Well, Anna's 18, so I know she was in there at one point in time, but the other kids were not.
You're sure that the other kids were not gambling?
I'm sure the other kids were not gambling.
Next, the questioning turned to a critical detail, and it goes directly to the state of the 16-year-old suspect in the hours before Anna's death. It's his prescribed medication. The attorney established that the teen has ADHD and takes 2 medications. One he takes in the morning called Concerta, and then he takes a nighttime pill for insomnia called Clonidine. Chantel, the stepmom, testified that she held on to both medications on the cruise, but then came a major admission about the final night.
As far as does he have any diagnoses?
He has ADHD.
And how long has he been diagnosed with ADHD?
About 3 or 4 years.
Those after your separation from Mr. Hudson, correct?
About that timeline, yes.
And does he receive medication for his ADHD?
He does.
And what medication was he on for his ADHD?
Methylphenidate.
Would you pronounce that for me and spell it, Pam, if you know?
Methylphenidate, I don't know the spelling.
Okay,
The name brand's Concerta, that
okay,
helps.
thank you.
And how often would take that medication?
Every morning.
And did he take the medication on the cruise with him?
Yes. He also takes a nighttime pill as well.
The same medication?
No, it's clonidine.
What is that for?
Insomnia.
Did you hold on to the medications?
Yes.
Did you make sure he took his medications every day?
He took his morning pill every day, and he missed 2 doses of his clonidine at night.
You held on to the clonidine as well?
Mm-hmm.
That's yes?
Yes, sorry.
And what do you mean he missed the doses? What happened there?
He went to bed before he got it. He was already asleep.
Including that Thursday night?
No, Thursday night he didn't get it. I fell asleep before he did.
So just to make sure I understand, ma'am, while on the cruise, he missed taking that nighttime medication twice. One of the nights was because he fell asleep prior to taking
Yes.
the medication, and the other night was the night before
Correct. I fell asleep before he
you
did.
fell asleep,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
he did not get the medication the night.
Yeah, he didn't come and
before
ask
the
for it.
incident.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
So, according to her own testimony, the 16-year-old suspect, who had been prescribed medication for insomnia, didn't receive that medication on the final night. She says that she fell asleep before he did and didn't give it to him. Now, this raises immediate questions for the investigation because you have to wonder what was the state of mind or the ability to sleep that night without his medication. Could that have had a role in his actions or behavior, allegedly inside that stateroom? The hearing also revealed how the tragedy surrounding Anna has disrupted the lives of the living children in the home. The attorney then asked Chantel about the immediate consequences for her young daughter, still living in the shadow of this tragedy.
After the cruise, did she have to be removed from school?
They placed her on homeschool. They just unenrolled her this past Monday.
And why is that?
That was their choice to unenroll her,
Say their choice. Who are you talking about?
the school's choice. It had nothing to do with her behavior or anything. It had to do with the media.
She's currently on a homeschool status indefinitely.
No, she's being enrolled into another school.
Did you discuss that with Mr. Hudson?
I let him know that he had asked me to let him know when she was enrolled, and I told him I would. But I had just found out this week that she was unenrolled from the school.
As far as is going to be allowed to come back to your home at any point?
At this time, no. Not with the FBI investigation.
Later, Chantel Kepner's attorney worked to solidify the narrative about the relationship between Anna and her stepbrothers, a relationship that, again, it's been described pretty differently.
Anna, who we know passed away, she was 18, correct?
Correct.
And was an adult.
Correct.
And was she given the option of staying in another room?
All 3 of the kids were.
Okay. And would that room have been with Grandma and Grandpa?
Correct.
And they didn't want to do that?
No, they wanted to stay together.
Did they all get along?
Yeah, the three of them are like the three amigos. They're best friends.
Okay.
This is the picture that the stepmom side is committed to. A close, chosen bond between the teenagers, a stark contrast to prior claims that Anna was afraid of her stepbrother.
Did your ex-wife inform you that she was going on a cruise and taking the children?
She did.
And what was your position regarding that?
I wasn't okay with it. I let her know I wasn't okay with it.
And why was it that you weren't okay with it?
Because at that time, I was getting nowhere with seeing my kids. I had barely any communication at all.
There was one notable absence from this hearing, and that's Anna's own dad, her biological dad, Christopher Kepner. Now, he was subpoenaed to testify about the safety of the home and the decisions made on the cruise, but he dodged service and did not appear. And that gets us to these new text messages that have since been released as part of this custody case that has been playing out. WKMG TV in Orlando says a day after Kepner's body was found, Chantel allegedly reached out to her ex-husband about needing to talk to him as soon as possible about what she called an emergency. Now, here are some of the text messages. These are from November 8th, and this is related to Thomas, the ex-husband, wanting to take their shared daughter as the investigation was just beginning. So here's a text from Chantel, quote, "I really do appreciate it, and I'm not trying to be in any which way. I just think it'll be more traumatizing for her to be removed as of right now. She doesn't know anything about the stepbrother. The only thing I told her is that he was having a hard time coping with losing Anna, so he's getting checked out by the hospital." And Thomas responds, "Okay, well, I'm not trying to push it, but the offer is there if when you find more out and have to handle things." Then Chantel says, "When we have to cross that bridge, you and I will come up with a way to tell her and Andrew." Now, Thomas says okay to that. Chantel says, "I will call you tomorrow as soon as I hear anything," and Thomas says okay. So they continue talking the next day, November 9th. This is after Anna's body has been taken off of the cruise ship. The ship arrived back in Miami on the 8th, and we're talking 2 days now after Anna's body was found. And here's what Chantel's ex-husband starts to say about the suspect in the case, Anna's stepbrother. Thomas says, quote, "Are you able to talk or see the stepbrother?" We are not going to put his name out there because he hasn't been charged and he is a minor. Now, Chantel says, "I'm waiting on the FBI and also the doctor to call me as soon as I know something. I promise you that I won't. I will call you." Chantel then says something like, quote, "Stupid, talk to text." Chantel says, "I promise you as soon as I get a call, but you are going to be the first person I called." Chantel then says, "As soon as I know anything, you will be the only one I will be calling." Thomas says, "I get that, but I mean, have you talked to the stepbrother while he's at the facility?" Chantel says, "I was able to talk to him last night for under 2 minutes briefly. He just keeps repeating over and over he can't remember anything." Chantel says, "I don't even know if they were allowed to let me talk to him or not. The nurse was very nice and let me talk to him just to tell him that you and I love him." Thomas says, quote, "I just want him to know that he isn't just dead to everyone. Regardless of everything at the moment, he needs his parents. I know you know that. I just would like to have a chance to talk to him as soon as possible." Chantel says, "We, Chris, who is Anna's biological dad, and his parents told him yesterday before they took him, we told him no matter what, you and us are with him. He isn't alone." Then Thomas says, "Okay, I know everything is supposed to be hush hush for now, but I've seen that it is still getting out with posts and comments between Facebook, TikTok, and stuff. I just want to make sure until things are certain that he doesn't get any unnecessary comments towards him." And Chantel says, "Nobody knows anything about him. He is a minor and has been kept completely out of it. We have not said anything to anybody, and we are going to try our best to keep it completely out. He is a minor, so his name shouldn't be anywhere. And when we talk to the FBI again, we will reiterate that we do not want his name out there, and everything that's been posted on TikTok and social media Nobody knows anything, and everybody's just speculating. We know what I told you last night, and we'll know exactly more when the autopsy is done. Once we get the autopsy today, depending on what it says, depend on whether he's booked on these charges, end quote. So clearly the family there, perhaps not surprisingly, expecting charges in this case, and we're still waiting to hear from the FBI if and when that happens. Now, as far as where the boy has been since the cruise, the Daily Mail claims they found him at a family home in rural Florida, and he was actually selling firewood on the side of the road. A reporter apparently approached him and asked him about the death of Anna Kepner, and the 16-year-old boy reportedly said, quote, "I'd rather not talk." He then appeared to lower his hat over his face and walked away. Now, even though Chantel seems to think that her son's name would not be put out into the public, you search social media and it certainly has been put out in the public, but we here at Law and Crime, we're not naming him because at 16 years old, he is a minor. Now, if he is charged and if he is tried as an adult, all of that could change. We'll continue to follow this story closely, but that will do it for this episode of On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. I'll see you next time.